In the bottom right-hand corner, our red Terran player from Team NV, he is going to be Cure. Up against the blue Zerg in the top left from Alpha X, RagnaroK. Why is Dragon Scales a veto over Babylon? Dragon Scales is very short, and there's a lot of very good positions for a Terran player to take. So typically Dragon Scales becomes the veto for a Zerg in these series. And then usually Babylon would be like a second veto for like a best of 3. But Dragon Scales is pretty much just the go-to veto. It's small, there's just a lot of good positions you can take as a Terran. You can really control the middle of the map very well. It's difficult to run by, like, it just really doesn't work well for a Zerg, so... Babylon has a few more options. It has a lot of, similar things that the Terran players like, but yeah, it's a little bit better for Zergs, a little bit more playable than Dragon Scales. But it really feels like Dragon Scales, like the odds are just stacked against you in pretty much everywhere. At least Babylon has a couple of redeeming qualities in comparison. As a hatch, and I guess we'll start up, so just getting that underway to begin with here, and yeah, just seeing where we go with this early game. See what sort of stuff our players want to be doing. Obviously, just saw kind of how RagnaroK was playing his CVT, kind of heavily based off of how his opponent was playing, though, like very reactionary, which is, usually what a Zerg plays like in general, but, we did see him get a bit aggressive on altitude, and that worked out very nicely. Dealing quite well with aggressive pushes and just, maybe sometimes having to give up a couple of bases, but eventually getting there, eventually getting the job done, I think, is the most notable part of all of that. As the spawning pool does pop up, a couple of queens on the way out, Lings are still producing. We do have this SCV. Just trying to wander around here. This is one of the maps where you don't really have an alternate third base easily as a Zerg. You don't really want to take your third base on the top side because you got to go through the gold minerals, and that is such a delay. Especially to kind of fully clean the gold minerals out if you want to have more than just like one mineral pathway to move between your bases, which you usually do. So yeah, just slowing down the third base being taken there actually does generally benefit you as a Terran player. It's something that's just worth doing on this map over the majority of other maps where there is a pretty reasonable alternate third. And honestly, I wouldn't say this third base is so bad for the Zerg outside of just getting to it initially. And that is kind of the problem. And obviously, if you're trying to take the left side third, and then it's like, oh, I can't, let's go take the right side third, and the minerals all mined out. You either have to wait for the minerals to mine, or send the drone the long way around, but then the Reaper's very likely going to get that drone kill, so it's just not easy to take, and as you can see, RagnaroK is going to end up being on 2 bases for quite a lot longer than initially planned. That grenade was a split second too soon to knock the drone back and delay this hatchery by just another second or so. But the general effect is still there, right? We have delayed this hatchery a significant amount initially, and forced RagnaroK into a more kind of, more units and just a few more, bits of production before we actually see the hatch coming into production. Drone just nibbling through the gold minerals toward the third base there. It's just going to go across. Couple drones, few Lings, couple queens all on the way up. The drones can continue to go through the minerals and, again, open up this area. Move across that right-hand side. Factory going to move over. Rax is going to get position as well. We do have the Viking that's actually going to go tag the Overlord a little bit as well. It's just going to knock this down. Had to remove scouting pretty early on, so RagnaroK will be a little bit blind, a little bit harder for him to know exactly what's going on, a little bit harder for him to know what to be expecting here. Pretty peaceful then as the last starts up. Seeing the single Ling gonna go moving forward. A little bit of that's coming through as well. Getting that established. We do see the Ling just gonna make its way down to the bottom side. Player's about halfway done. Stimpak's coming up to completion, and we do see a couple of Hellions and Marines just defending that Ling. That Ling gets to see, you know, Hellions moving out, Marines in the natural. Is there anything surprising about any of that? Not really, as RagnaroK is currently working through a pretty nasty supply block, so having to go into a whole chunk of Overlords to work his way out of that. Hellions and the Reaper coming forward, getting rid of that creep spread. These couple of Queens still just pressing through as well as they drop down some creep jimmers and they push to the middle of the map. So creep spread being pushed into the center. The Spore Crawler here is going to push the Viking away to the left-hand side as well, so that Viking gets shoved on over to the left. Away we go with that. Again, melee upgrade, attack upgrade, sorry, 1-1, and combat shield, all producing from Q. And once he gets those, you know that Q is going to start pushing. And I do want to recall the series that these two played the other day in the Winter Championship. They played a full 5-game series, and in 4 out of 5 games, RagnaroK played the Ling Bane Muta. Saw a lot of success with it, and what typically was happening was that the Mutas were able to contain Cure to such a heavy extent that RagnaroK just took the map. And that Cure was, you know, pushed into play in a very late-game scenario with the Zerg just having way too much control. Cure just gave so much respect to the Mutas, almost too much respect to the Mutas. And we saw in a future game as well, you know, later when we casted RagnaroK, and I think in the Korean Royale a couple days after those Winter Championship playoffs, you know, he tried to go Mutas, and someone was just like, well, no, you don't just get to kind of come across at me with, you know, with Mutas. You're not going to keep me at home with them. And it was a very different style of game at that stage. So, do have our Hydra Ding coming down this time, though, so we're not going to see the Mutas. This is one thing that RagnaroK switched into at the very end of that series against QL last time, so maybe that's of some interest here. There's that Marines just holding out on the right side, holding that watchtower. And you see the missile turret popping up in the center, and a few more Lings is going to escape away and start to move through the middle of the map also. So they're going to head down through the middle of the map for the moment. As you see, again, just 2-2 upgrades already starting from Q, so going straight into his next set of upgrades, recognizing that keeping those is going to be very important for him. And just wait, it's working straight towards it as we do see Lings and Banes working through the center. We do up the right side go and have ourselves a bit of a Marine push. So Marine push coming through. Now Lings and our Banes going to roll at the front here. We do have initial couple of Hellbats getting knocked down. Hellbats going down. Lings are coming through. Going to get a good surround on these Marines. Siege tank going to get picked off as well. Now Lings are going to flood into the mineral lines. And they're going to have a choice of what they do, as a lot of SCVs begin to drop down dead. Marines just keep on shoving forward. A few Banes turn around to try and fight against this. Not going to find much success just yet. A couple of Banelings popping out, moving over to the sides. And now we've got, well, Q taking heavy damage at home, but is his position on the map just too good? Set up over here, and honestly set up to really just hold this spot. Let's see what we can do. These tanks kind of need to survive. We need their shots against these Banes. They're going to get all the shots necessary. Hydra's now coming forward, though. Is that enough power? Did we push the Marines back long enough? It seems like maybe we did. Q will be pushed back from this position. This game will be held for RagnaroK at the moment. And obviously Q doesn't have a lot of SCVs left to rebuild with, so, you know, any amount of continuation here in this game is going to be pretty rough for Q, because his economy is really not in a good place. So Q, well, he needs to keep going, basically, and he is bringing reinforcements across the map, but, well, he might want to wait for 2-2 upgrades, and maybe with 2-2 he can make one consolidated push to really try and make a difference. We open up the left-hand side. Marines knocking down this set of rocks, so we will have Banes and Hydras retreating away up the left-hand side, so away they go. A lot more Lings coming through. Again, the 2-2 is going to be a big advantage for Q, who is maintaining an army supply lead. A combination of army supply lead and upgrade lead could be very scary. It could be kind of deadly, in fact. So that is a possibility here, as our Lings and our Banes and our Hydras all spreading out. The SCV is already going down. We do have the Ling Bane Hand just going to press on forward. Again, the few Marines getting pushed back a little bit. As you do see, our Ling is going to wrap around and start to just get a bit of a cuddle over on that base. Depot is burning as our 2-2 melee upgrades continue through. Well, RagnaroK did bounce back into a bit of an army supply lead, at least, as here again, playing slowly with these tanks. He really loves the positioning on Neo-Humanity he can take with these. However, when you're playing slowly and not pressing the issue, it gives RagnaroK time to set up counterattacks, and that's exactly what he's doing. On the bottom right side, RagnaroK begins to flood in. That base is pretty much abandoned anyway. There's no SCVs even left on it. Kira is just going to focus on this push, but of course, RagnaroK can bring that army back at any time and turn this into a little bit of a surround, right? So I would imagine that's going to be... Yeah, I would imagine that's going to be Kira's problem here. And of course, he can't bring his reinforcements across the map while these units are here. There's 3 siege tanks in his natural. I mean, RagnaroK is going to have to give up this base, perhaps, and will lose the base to the left side too, but he's got a new base up at right, and for now, that's enough bases for him. That's enough economy to work off of to be A-okay here. Still waiting on that 2-2 RagnaroK, and if you can wait for the 2-2 before he actually commits to the fight, I think that would be the absolute most ideal scenario. As Lings will knock down a couple of refineries, we'll see the orbital command just coming through as well. 8 drones going down, and this really feels as though Pure is in just a bit of trouble, because for everything that he's doing, it just seems so superficial and it's just taking so long to truly make a difference. Here we have got Lings, Banes flooding in from every which direction. In we go. Bane's going to go chasing down. They're actually going to catch a group of these Marines trying to run away, and it looks as though RagnaroK will comfortably take this battle and will comfortably take the 1-0 lead in this best of 5 series. As so far today, his ZVT is on fire. And what a day for it to be on fire with 2 tough Terran opponents to start the day out with. Obviously, he's not through Cure yet. 1-0 lead is a fantastic start, though. Might just be what he needs. 3-3 starts from Cure. I mean, that's pretty darn hopeful. He's obviously recognizing he has to play a very defensive game now, in which case he might have time to get upgrades. But sure, I mean, if you're in this kind of position, take those kind of risks, right? You got to play as though there is a chance for you. Obviously, we can see that this chance is absolutely dwindled, demolished, and gotten rid of from RagnaroK's point of view. So, you know, really, as soon as RagnaroK is maxed out, he should... The only thing for RagnaroK is you don't want to go running into the natural, because the natural might be too well defended. But the third base, if there's any amount of defense there, I think that should be a bit more open and should allow you to take a good enough fight into to just sort of throw units into that third base on repeat and really trying to just, you know, make sure you deny it. You know, holding out on the watchtower there for a few moments as well. Not doing too much just yet, but yeah, just keeping an eye on things right and all the rest. Now, siege tank gonna pop out and just seeing the Lings, the Banes, and the Hydras come back over the left side. Marines turn around. Just another scene. Marling being come through. It's gonna flood on in. A couple of tanks gonna start getting knocked down. As that Bane's kind of crash in. These Marines getting whacked, and just gonna be seeing the SCVs kind of getting taken down as well. Like I say, if there's any amount of attempt to defend a third, which there has to be, well, defending the third base is just not gonna go well for you. We kind of knew that. This is exactly what we see. And that's going to be RagnaroK taking game number 1 of this best of. As we have got in the bottom left-hand corner, our blue Terran player. This is going to be Cure. Currently down by a map against the red Zerg, who is on fire so far today. Third place finisher in the WardiTV Winter Championship. It is RagnaroK. Of course, he's fighting the WardiTV Winter Champion in Cure. As all top 3 of our finishers play today from that Winter Championship here in our Korean Royale. Our first major WardiTV event of the 2023 year wrapped up. And again, we actually, so just a little bit of a note as well, guys. Not really super crazy, or doesn't change much for you guys, but we did add some Wardy points to this tournament as well. So players in this event will earn some Wardy points towards qualifying into the WardiTV Spring Championship this year, which obviously is quite cool for them. And, you know, some players may not care so much about that, but for players that do participate in our events directly, the Wardy points are a way to reward you playing in other events, and then kind of help you to get, you know, a chance to take part in other events as well. So, yeah. Just in case you guys were wondering. Initially, we didn't have any Wardy points attached to this, but I decided, hey, why the hell not? You know? Why The hell not. Hatchgasm pool all coming up as we get underway. And just seeing the couple of drones coming out on the side of RagnaroK. Reaper orbital coming up for the moment. And yeah, feelings, Queen. Just waiting to see where the action's gonna be here in this game number 2. Again, just RagnaroK not afraid to go pool first. We'll see if he finds as much success here as he did against Gumiho in that earlier match. That was kind of a ridiculous amount of success for pool first, though. Like, you know, kind of the amount of success you're not really meant to see at all. So don't kind of go and expecting it, but you know, it did happen that one time, right? So why not again, perhaps? Dropping the factory down. We've got that placed in the main base, so factory into location already. Command center still coming up. The marine production on the way in. A couple of SCVs are producing. It's really our standard first 2.5 minutes. You know, the first lings just sort of stayed at home, and we just sort of sit back and wait for something more exciting to happen. I thought it was going to be one of those games where we would have at least something to talk about early game. So I held off going off script and, you know, into the depths of other things, but yeah, in this case, there's not really been much to say. It has been pretty chilled out. It has been pretty relaxed here as our Queen comes through. Just going to attack that Reaper, and the Reaper does get pushed away back down to the low ground. And that Reaper does go jumping out into the center of the map. Handling speed will be on the way up. A couple of drones are coming through, and our hatchery building on the third base as well. As our factory will land onto the reactor, Barrack's going to move over. And yeah, Queen, handful of lings just sort of setting up in the front at the moment here and seeing if there's anything that they can get involved in. As our Reaper just backs it up and really just keeping the scouting going. Ancient system then. Let's talk a bit about the map while we still have a bit of setup going on. It is a large map, that's why Terrans don't like it. It takes a long time to get across. Reinforcing is difficult because of the size. The base layout's very good for a Zerg too, and there's a lot of different pathways and ways to sneak units around the map as a Zerg player as well. So generally, just the Zergs love this map, like I say, and you know, for it being 8 bases, there's a few maps that have 8 bases in this map pool, but this is definitely the most egregious one where it's just like, if the Zerg starts getting a lot of these bases, it's so difficult to stop them. So a lot of the time on Ancient, you're really looking as the Terran to kind of have a good opener and then keep the momentum in your favor, just to stop the Zerg kind of running away with the game, because it's going to be so much harder to stop it. Now, obviously, if you do get forced into super late game, that is one way to work your way around that and to play around this, but I mean, that's still not fun playing super late game on a map that has so many bases for Zerg. It's going to be so hard to draw them out and to draw them, you know, to a point where they can't really contest. So, yeah. Our drones are going to start producing once again and just going to be seeing our stim packs about halfway done. STV is producing on the orbital, and again, a couple of barracks, a couple of engineering bays continuing out for the moment as our Hellions, Reaper, just moving back through into the center. The couple of Queens of RagnaroK will be continuing to set up into the center here and just drop a couple of creep teamers down. We have 4 overlords and 4 drones all on the way out. Extractor on the way. And yeah, 2 more engineering bays just popping out as well as our Hellions and the Reaper will make their way down to the south. Any crypt spread you can deny, generally going to be good. Again, take control of a map away from the Zerg, especially on the map which, you know, I've just explained all the reasons why you don't want the Zerg to be controlling it, basically, more so than any other. Our Queen was doing a little bit of a spin. It doesn't save the Overlord. Apparently dance moves don't heal. I don't know, maybe trying to cause an updraft, force the Overlord higher into the sky. Viking can't hit it. It's like a new layer of, you know, a new layer to play on, I guess. What do you want to call it? A new layer of terrain to play on. The extra air terrain. Air units can't actually shoot upwards. Further, or something. I don't know. Well, we do have the layer halfway done. The melee upgrades, like we've mentioned once before, already coming by, and they're going to be matched pretty nicely with the Terran upgrades as Cure. At what point are we going to try and do something? Like I say, I get a little worried for the fact that if this game carries on this way, he's kind of just letting RagnaroK do as he wishes, and he's not really doing much himself. to really slow things down as a couple Marines will begin to unload in the center. And the Lings really do dart through the middle as well. Our Marines want to come across and try and fight against this. The Lings will try for a little bit of a wraparound. Marines come in, a couple of creep teamers already going down. The Lings want to go and try and get a little bit of a grab here as Kure just not going to have the numbers to really stay competitive in the center. That is a chunk of Banelings on the way out from RagnaroK in the middle of the map here. 23 Banes plus 2 melee, Baneling speed. All of this being brought into play right now as our Marines tank plus 2 attack. All being set up as well. We get a couple of reactors and refineries. Might be just one of those games where we do just have to play it slow as Kure. And if that's how we have to play this, then, you know, so be it, but it's not going to be fun. Playing slowly, like I say, on a map like Ancient is going to give the Zerg pretty much every opportunity that they want, and that's going to be very difficult. Was that an example of me forgetting how to speak? I couldn't think of, like, I was like trying to say different levels of attacking. I couldn't think of what it really was, because obviously it's not levels of attacking, it's levels of terrain. You've got the ground terrain, and then you've got the air terrain, I suppose, in a way. I don't even know. Like, air units hit air units. Like, Vikings hit air units, but if there's an even higher air unit, what if the Viking can't shoot up? Like, it can't shoot down, you know? I don't know. It was something I just had no idea how to really put into words. This is my problem. I say so many things, or I try to be funny in ways I don't actually know how to say. It's like, oh god, what am I doing for my... I'm really just making my own life difficult, you know? Border terrain when? Can you imagine StarCraft had ships? Marines just, you know, float across the river on a raft. Just like, we're coming! We've got this! Charge! Raft moves, 10% faster with Stimpak activated somehow. Because the Marines row faster, I guess, if they're on the raft. A goal still achieved being funny. Yeah, but I'm being funny because people laugh at the fact I can't talk rather than the fact that I said something funny, right? It's like, it's achieving your goal. It's like accidentally achieving your goal. Like, you actually miss what you're trying to do, but you succeed anyway. What's that called? There must be a word for that, right? There'll be some fancy word for it. Anyways, Marines coming forward, and a couple of Lings will get knocked down. Bane's falling back around the right side. We actually have, I mean, this drop over here is going to lift up and just let the Widow Mines do some work. Obviously, this is decent, but again, we're not really doing anything active as Kure. It's just going to be held back, slowed down, and we just sort of sit and wait out for a while. A lot of Ling Bane being made. In this game, it has been only Ling Bane. We've got the Hive just now starting up, so we begin to tech into a later stage of this game with that Hive now on the way, but yeah, I mean, for Kure, he's going to have so many units coming his way, and actually RagnaroK is going to run at Kure's base right now. Couple of Widow Mines setting up. What can they do? Going to go off for a few Banelings. Is the defensive setup good enough for Kure? Some of these units already ran into the natural expansion. Can we defend over there? There's 25 SCVs going down. Kure is just getting absolutely bodied by this first attack of the Zerg. 33 dead SCVs. Man, RagnaroK is just looking unhindered in ZVT today. He's not done yet, by the way. There was going to be a chunk more SCVs blown up there. 51 comes up as the GG is called. 51 SCVs killed, and honestly, dare I say, just a very uninteresting game where nothing really happened until we just attack with everything. Wow. GG's. Is RagnaroK in our world in CVT so far today. In the bottom right-hand corner, and he cannot be stopped. He is RagnaroK. Top left, our blue Terran player is going to be from Team Envy. It is Kure. Well then, we are going to go pool first again from RagnaroK with a gas this time. That's actually a bit of a difference. Before it was just a pool without a gas, right? This time, we're gassing it up. And that means we're likely to be way more aggressive throughout the upcoming moments. So, potential for roaches here. You've got a 2-0 lead. Maybe RagnaroK ain't messing around. We'll see what happens as our Reaper is going to be coming through. A couple of SCVs will move out down to the low ground. Reaper coming up. Orbital coming up. Command Center coming into the main. Going to the natural. We will wait and see. Let's be coming on in, Queen. About to be finishing. We do have our hatchery coming in. Drone building up. Couple more links heading out onto the map. And the SDV just peeling away for the moment, pulling back into the center. Link speed's halfway through. Obviously, both hatcheries coming up from RagnaroK. In the end, this wasn't really anything in particular. Obviously, just fast link speed. We'll see if he does something with the fast link speed. That is possible. You know, you can go with the link speed just across the map super quickly here with a few links and maybe catch the Terran off guard. Especially if they don't scout that the link speed is so quick. They could really be caught off guard. You know, units not necessarily ready to defend against the fact that links would have speed. And one thing we're definitely watching a little bit for is you seeing this Reaper hops up and the links go chasing. And the Reaper hops back up to the top side as well. So a bit of back and forth so far, again moving around. Nothing too crazy as we do have our Reaper coming over to the left. And just seeing the racks dropping back down as well. Starport and the command center continue through. The Marines are there already, and the Zergling's getting pushed back. Just seeing this orbital command lifting off the natural as well, so peeling away from that. A couple of Hellions coming in. We do see the starport about to complete in the main base. So we do have triple CC from Cure. Like I say, these Lings having their speed so early allows them to kind of come forward and be aggressive like this, but then as soon as there's Hellions and the Hellions are kept fairly safe here, you can't really do too much else, right? You can't really get on top of those Hellions or anything, so yeah, it's going to be pretty much just kind of shut down as we do see our Lings still gathering around on the front. See a little bit of discussion about the creep tumor change, by the way, in chat. The creep tumor change was actually a little bit, just to add some context and maybe help you guys understand the effect it had. The creep tumor change was actually very minimal because I think it was Hero Marine at the time sort of like showed the difference of creep in a game between, you know, of a Zerg. Or when they were, like, I can't remember exactly what he showed, but he did something to show basically the difference it made, and it was basically like, it actually had like no effect on the Zerg's creep spread, even though the cooldown was longer, because people don't spread creep on cooldown immediately for very long in the game, so yeah, it was a very minor creep spread nerf, they change in cooldown for being able to spread it, so. Just because, like, creep's one of those things which, yes, you want to be pretty fairly heavily prioritizing creep, but it's not, like, your main priority, right? So it's not, like, one of those things you're waiting every second and boom, the creep tumor spreads the moment it can. It's like you go back to it every roughly however many seconds, every 15 seconds or whatever, and you just spread it again, right? So it's really interesting because I thought it was one of those changes. Like, when I started, I was like, oh, that's actually really cool. Then to realize that it had so little effect, I was like, wow. Like, it's just like one of those underlying things that you don't necessarily see in StarCraft, right? Where it's like you don't know exactly how much of an impact certain things have, and you know, that not having an impact at all was like, whoa, how can that even be the case in a way? Kind of wild. Our Hellions will be moving further into the center of the map. Baneling Nest, a lair, and a few more overlords also being produced at the moment, so bringing all of this up. So our hatchery will go down on the 4th base as well, so just getting that set. And the two Banshees make their way out down to the bottom, so down to the south we go. See if these Banshees can get some damage dealt. 3 drones to begin with, which is not bad. We're going straight into the Spire here as RagnaroK, so he is going to play that Lingbane Muta style. So we're going to see that pretty much be his immediate go-to. And yeah, Kua just having a good defense early. I think very notable that obviously this was a very fast initial set of, a very fast initial link speed that really didn't do anything. Was quite noteworthy because that's a big investment in your economy that then doesn't go into anything. And now you lose 2 queens on the edges, and these Banshees are going to start chipping through more drones. 2 queens, a bunch of drones, and yeah, just in the general opening of RagnaroK is leading the Kua being in a fantastic spot here. 3rd queen as well. I think we chased through the Spore Crawl to get it. We don't. I honestly think he probably could have done, but I guess if the queen keeps running, maybe it's not worth it. Queen's going to come to the edge now. That's risky, because if the Banshee turns onto the queen will just die. So that's just a little bit of micro you're kind of tempting out of the Terran player, who is really just letting this Banshee do whatever, not apparently paying too much attention to it. Finally does go down. The queen that was low received a transfusion, so it's going to be feeling a little bit better following on from that as well. Only coming through the center, and Kira is going to be, pushing into a supply blocked RagnaroK, and he has 1/1 upgrades. The first muta's just popping as well, so it's not exactly ideal for RagnaroK. Your mutas are popping and boom, they have to fight straight away rather than being able to go harass. Well, let's see if they can maybe do something though, because the mutas were again a savior for RagnaroK in the series he last played against Kua. Right now, these Marines working their way through the hatchery. Lings starting to come through. The mutas are going to dive forward. First siege tank already in some trouble, taken down pretty quickly. Going to go launch ourselves onto the second siege tank as well. That's also taken down pretty swiftly, so both tanks will drop. Melee upgrade still coming through on those evolution chambers, and well, this is kind of not really a defense. It slows down what's going on here, but that's kind of about it for the moment. We've yes, slowing down's good though, because we've got the mutas to harass, and to be fair, Kira is only on a 4th base. Is already on a 4th base, so he wasn't like super committed on 3. Didn't need to do like a game-ending push or anything with this. I was going to say, kind of fighting into this without having a siege tank or any form of proper splash damage was going to be kind of scary and a bit sketchy perhaps, but he kind of pulled back. He didn't really commit to it. The Marines trying to work their way through some of those mutas. Extra Marines showing up underneath, and the muta's going to get chased away, so mutas get pushed back immediately. And the Marines just come stepping forward, and again, the mutalists will peel back away around the right side. Melee upgrades come through. The 2/2 upgrades are coming up. Medevacs, mines, and barracks all in production. Good defense against these mutas, but again, I just worry that maybe Kua lets this kind of become a game where he just sits back now and just becomes a defender. And again, how well can you really do if you're just becoming a defender against someone that has then the map free to take in their own favor? Yeah, the upgrades are very good from Kua. RagnaroK will level up 1/1 at least shortly. Overlord speed also on the way. Overlord speed's nice because then you can keep an overseer with the mutas more easily. So more so than, anything else, that is something of a factor as well. As our Lings run in, Marines and Hellbats gonna get surrounded pretty much immediately. Our Banes crash in as well to clear out a little bit. Just gonna get some decent cleanup on that. Missile turrets firing, mutas taking some damage. Rest of these Marines, Hellbats, Widow Mines coming around through the center as well. We do see these Banes are going to come running up. The Widow Mine trying to get burrowed there, and we'll see the army of the Zerg backing it up a little bit. That Ling Bane staying strong in the center. I mean, Kua taking some decent positions, but now RagnaroK's maxed. This is the thing, you can kind of run around the map a little bit all over the place there now with these mutas, and obviously as the Terran player, you've got to be careful as to when you have to come running back and when not to. Bane's getting knocked down with the help of those Hellbats, and I mean, I do like the fact we've got, obviously, the 2-2 upgrades. The 2-2 upgrades are pretty freaking notable. It has to be a pretty major factor here is, you know, it's going to help you in a big way. We have this army of RagnaroK looking to come in from the left side. This is not pretty. He takes a long time to come in from the right, so this army was not really connected in its attempt to attack. The Overseer does draw the Widow Mine fire. It doesn't splash anything, and it was just such a disjointed attack. And when the opponent has 2-2, you're essentially just gifting half of your army into, well, again, 2-2 upgrades. Just, yeah, you're not going to have a good time there. That wasn't the efficiency or the trade it needed to be out of RagnaroK, and this means that Kira is probably going to get to see us at Game 4 of this series, which I'm very happy about. Didn't want the playoffs to just be a wash. And we are going to be seeing Marines continue to run up, Lings will continue to be chased down. GG says RagnaroK, and Kira is going to take Game 3 of this best of 5. Kira is going to keep this series alive for the moment, as we will, like I say. Absolutely, like, she was up and down, and then she was fighting for the bed. And she tried to push me out the bed. I had to get up and move her. It was just not a good night's sleep. So, excuse me, stifling a yawn, as we do have at the top right corner of the map our right Terran player. Still down by a game. This is Kira. As in the bottom left, our blue Zerg, RagnaroK. Something happened to Ellie? No, not recently. She was just restless last night. She was pretty ill a couple months ago, like around Katowice. She was in hospital. She actually had to go into like animal hospital for like 2 weeks. Ellie's the dog, guys. Yes, Ellie's the dog. So she was pretty ill a couple months ago, but she's pretty much all recovered from that. Apart from she hasn't. She's still in the process of regrowing her hair. Where they had to shave it off for certain injuries and stuff. So yeah, Ellie is spoiled rotten. So she, you know, the dog that was never meant to be allowed up into the bedroom now sleeps on the bed. And even though we have a nice big bed, the dog decides to sleep right slap bang between us and then stretch out. So yeah. I know the way I talk about Ellie sometimes, I can understand if you get confused. She's not normal. She's spoiled beyond belief, honestly. Won't the dog kind of leave a lot of hairs on the bed? I mean, the dog leaves a lot of hairs everywhere, so we're breathing in hairs constantly anyway, so I don't think it makes any difference there being hair on the bed if it's already all over the rest of the house. Actually, to be fair, like she does lose hair. When she loses hair, she loses a lot, but she only loses hair at like a lot at certain parts of the year. Like when it gets very hot in the summer, she usually gets like she loses a lot more frequently then. So yeah, I feel like you just sort of have to. You sort of just have to live with it, you know? Yeah, you just sort of have to accept, like, oh, this is my life now. I live a life covered in hair. So, yeah. Yes, it's a golden retriever. In the summer, she loses a lot, but she hasn't really lost much in the last, like, I'd say, like, the last 2 or 3 months. I've not really noticed her hair that much. Maybe I'm just becoming so much more accustomed to it. Maybe. Maybe that's what it is. Creeper coming to the front. A queen gets a creep tumor to go down, and seeing the orbital command and a third command center all coming up as well. So, start of this game pretty peaceful. Nothing too ridiculous happening just right away. As our reactor does drop down onto the factory, we'll begin some Hellions. There's a Roach Roaring, though, from RagnaroK, so maybe going to try and get a bit roachy here in this game number 4. Still only a map away from moving into the top 6 of the WardiTV Korean Royale. And so you will see this Reaper fighting. A little grenade goes down. A queen gets bopped up into the skies. See that little bit of creep spread pushing on out, and we do have the gas to build a chunk of roaches immediately here as RagnaroK, so expect a whole bunch of roaches to come on through. You see the Banshee, a couple of Hellions being brought in, so just getting all of those into play. And these Hellions are going to dive by, so 2 Hellions and a Reaper. Okay, can they stay around here long enough to see the roaches? That would be really good information to gain, I would say, probably. Yes, we had definitely had the chance to glimpse a roach there, at least, as long as we're still watching. Kill 4 drones. We're actually pretty safe against roaches anyway, because we're building a Banshee and Cloak, so that's actually a pretty good sign. If your name is Cure. That should be a bit of a natural defense already being set up there, so that should help quite a bit, as we do have. Our roaches just moving over, met by the Banshee, and RagnaroK supply blocked as well. 66 over 66 was building 4 overlords at once. Kind of shows you that this is really not turning into his game. This is actually backfiring a little bit, and yeah, this is a rough start. The only good news here is that I guess you keep the roaches alive, which, if the roaches are still alive, at least you can use them later. Like, you don't have to... It's not like they all died and then you have to replace them, which cuts into your drone count even further, for example. That could obviously be, quite a problem sometimes, so... yeah. As you see, the couple Marines going to knock the Overlord down. So taking that out the way for the moment. Coming up across a couple of different, well, off the main base, but you have extractors all across these bases as well, as we get some more of this gas coming through. Factory will land over on the tech lab. And let's see, a couple engineering bays, a couple of barracks, all of this being built up. The stim pack is already being brought into play as well. You just see that spire dropping down into the back of the main to get that all up and running. 1-1 upgrade, stim, all coming through. The couple of extra racks just building up here as well. Hellings still producing out, and again, the couple of Banshees getting turned around the left-hand side. Roaches coming over. Hellions do get pushed back as well. And we do see the Banshees coming through to just knock down. It changed, I believe, on the left, so... Let's come by again, knocking down another creep to your miss, just taking down what we can when we can. And we do see another drone that's going to move over to the left, so we're going to get up toward 5 bases here, or at least try to from RagnaroK. Again, the opening's not been great for RagnaroK. I guess you can really say very similar to that last game, where the opening was not brilliant. Definitely didn't work out in his favor, and now Cure's definitely taking those little leads. That last game was able to turn into a pretty decisive victory. Let's see if RagnaroK can, like I say, turn this around here. He's still waiting on Ling speed. Is going to go into mutas again. Like I say, against Q, mutas seem to be RagnaroK's absolute best friend and most utilized unit. He seems to absolutely love using them. No, the mutas are bad. It's just like they're not, we're not really seeing, this is not really a meta where mutas prevail a lot of the time lately. So I guess that is kind of part of my intrigue in it. He's running over, a couple of Hellions take some damage. These Marines is coming straight in. Again, we don't have Bane speed or anything. You've just been building your mutas up, so defense is going to be minimal here. And you now see the 2-2 upgrades already producing on the side of Q. We get that 2-2 on the way. The melee upgrades coming in. The Baneling speed is about to finish up as well. These mutas come straight in. A whole bunch of SCVs. 3 workers going down, gonna pop in for 4. Gonna try and maybe find 5. The Marines still pushing through, and the mutas do get chased back out over the left-hand side there. They're just gonna sit here and pick their way through a siege tank. First siege tank is gonna drop. The second siege tank taking quite a bit of damage. But this comes at the cost of the mutas, which have been kind of getting massacred, and yep, kind of getting massacred, I say, as they all fly over Marines and die. Absolutely getting massacred, to say the absolute least there. Team Medivacs load up, and away they go. Just going to be seeing Q keeping momentum in this game. 1.63k resources lost. 4th base is building, so we are playing a macro game here. We're not hitting any kind of 3-base time. We're not doing any kind of push that's just never going to end or anything along those lines. It's not that kind of a game. There's a Ling Bane comes through. Gonna be seeing our Bioforce in the center as well, just having to be a little bit careful, backing it up for a moment or two. We're just gonna start knocking our way through a set of rocks here. Yo, Fear Dragon, how you doing? Thank you so much for the 87-month resub. Can I make them fight? Wow, Fear Dragon, why would you want the players to be fighting? Hello? Why so mean? That's unbelievable. As if Fear Dragon just wants to see everyone fighting in StarCraft instead of being friends. Unbelievable. Real talk though, 2-2 is about to finish from Kieran. I'm pretty sure he would like to fight with that. You want to see an SCT play a boxing match? How about an SCT? How about a boxing match where every time you get a hit, you get to play the game for 10 seconds? So it's like these these dumb chess boxing matches the creators have been making lately. The StarCraft version. I do have a hive already starting. The hatchery building up. 2-2 melee upgrade still producing as well. As Lings and Banes will come into the center. Wouldn't mind trying to get a strike off, but doesn't stay around long enough as Cure starting to rally down the front. Of course, Royal Blood is a great map when you get that forward base up as a Terran. It's a great position to stand in. It's a great position to just move forward from in general. So, a lot you can typically do there as our Lings move back around to the left side. A couple of Marauders firing up on a Spine Crawler for a few moments, getting a little bit done. Of course, again, to this point where RagnaroK is obviously stabilizing in a big way as well. No, his high is finishing soon. He's gonna get 2-2, and he's got a good amount of bases. The only thing he doesn't really have a great amount of is honestly creep spread. There's not many bases that have like a good amount of creep in front of them. There's no response to this run by from Cure though. And these Banelings hit all of the SCVs. I thought that obviously you knocked through the depots initially and everything else. It felt like there was going to be a chance to save SCVs there, but Cure does not, and that's going to end up being quite costly. Because these few Banes still trying to roll through into those Marines. Marauders will continue onto the hatch. And Mutalists will go onto the orbital command, and just seeing the Roaches continue to fight. There's a couple more Marines, and the Marauder taking some shots. The Lings and the Banes continue to come through. And we don't mind going to line up for all of those Banes. Wow, there's even two, and well, we would have had even more Banes dead if they split their targets. I mean, 19 SCVs killed across the map. This orbital command will fall down as we do not get the SCVs there to repair it in time. So, unfortunately, that doesn't work out. 3-3 melee upgrade still producing, then just getting those starters. RagnaroK, a Hydra Den 2, looking toward the future perhaps, but still got to consider the right now as there is a Terran army approaching your base, and oh, these drones are pulling away from the left side, but they pull into the army in the process. 10 drones pretty much just gifted right there. Thank you very much. We take those as a counterattack of the Zerg is going to break through, and there's not a lot of Terran here. Wouldn't mind to maybe try and soften some things up and to give you a bit more of a chance. And as you do see, the Lings, the Mutas continue to wander around, and well, he has to come back and deal with this, but RagnaroK's pretty broken. He can't afford much. He's down 40 army supply already. It does seem as though RagnaroK is in a bundle of trouble right now. It just seems as though he might actually be a little bit just outplayed here in this game number 4. And that Cure might indeed have the victory on his side. And that would take us to a game 5, which is obviously very exciting as well. As our Lings wrap around, the Thor will get killed off, so that's going to get nuked down. And just seeing the Fuelings escaping out over to the far left-hand side for the moment as well. Lings come up, a turret goes down, some Ling Bane getting set up around the right side. Knock down the base on the left is obviously a pretty big pick-off as our Bioforce comes back around the right. Just gonna see our Ghost Academy setting up, and We'll have our Lingbane Force ready to try and still play defense. 3-3 now to 2-2, but those upgrades are about to even up again. Is just set there and just going to be pulling out a couple of our Banes, going to get knocked on through. Our Bioforce coming forward, and our Marines will have to take a few steps backward. Wouldn't mind shots going to strike, and well, we just have to continue escaping out of here if Manavax get away up through the top. And now RagnaroK survives, able to stay in a pretty leveled position. All things considered, right? I mean, it's absolutely a game where you can sort of look at this and say, well, did we not sort of expect RagnaroK to be completely dead by now? Yeah, kind of did at points, honestly. And Neosteel armor coming up. We're getting to that point where even just Terran buildings having extra armor is going to help, because it just stops the Zerg's ability to bust those down and to work their way through them. Of course, RagnaroK hitting a new strength in this game, and do get our adaptive talons building up as well. So adaptive talons on the way up, a few lurkers already coming out. The +1 missile upgrade is also being brought into play as our bio presses forward. And it's going to knock down a hatchery. So the hatchery will drop. Grabbing a little bit around that right side, as you see. Again, a few more orbitals coming up, a couple of Widow Mines, Ghosts, tanks, all being brought into play. These Banelings rolling in. Bio has to step away. Uh-oh. This Bio wasn't moving back at all, so actually RagnaroK's going to get a good set of fights here. This base is going to go down. The SCV should go with it, and Nisani dropping into the corner is actually not really going to survive very well either. Kira's going to get wiped out a little bit here. And I was seeing us again at Game 5 in this series, but that vision might be fast disappearing, as we do see Kira actually now the player that is not going to have much left over, and rebuilding is going to be a bit of a struggle, especially if RagnaroK feels like he can keep on going, which he does. He's morphing in Banelings to go once again, and if that's the case, you're in a lot of trouble as Kira, because usually you need a little bit of time for your mining to kick in for the Terran rebuild to happen, but yeah, if RagnaroK's just ready to keep on going, yeah, Kira might just be in way too much trouble altogether here, as our Lings and our Banes are going to run into the top. In we go. Planetary Fortress is immediately going to be in some trouble. SCVs are going to peel away. We have a bit of bio that's going to run down, and well, Planetary just straight up dies to begin with, as we see the 9 lurkers currently produced and a couple of infestors being brought out as well. And all the tech is just coming into play here from RagnaroK. Kira is stabilizing at least. He is getting back towards maxing. Most importantly, his army supply is looking bigger and better than it has been before as well. So I think that too is quite important for us to see here, as Infestor pops out. Going to go wandering forward. Queen just sitting around as our Lurker Den is at the front, and a handful of Infestors are still trying to figure out just where they want to go. Lings to the right-hand side, these few Marines and get picked away at, and just seeing a couple of missile turrets building out of Kira. Good turnaround in this game from RagnaroK so far. He really was in that rough position. Kira was kind of dominating, and yeah, Kira, that it wasn't even like a bad fight that kind of took Kira out. Obviously, like 3 minutes ago, that big fight that kind of blasted Kira when he wasn't ready. But you know, at that point, I was thinking that RagnaroK was already, you know, making moves to be back in it again. So just an interesting few turns of events, I suppose. As you obviously now have both players kind of hitting different armies. You know, you see kind of just mech production from Kira. He's setting up to deal with Broodlords. Blue Flame Hellbat's great against Lings and Broodlings. The Thor's great against Broodlords. It's the kind of army you begin needing at this stage of the game, especially because RagnaroK is hitting his next layer of tech as well. He's getting a lot of spellcasters up. And those spellcasters are quite important because they can really go a long way. They can really do a lot. Neural Parasites are obviously going to be potentially massive here. They're just the sort of things you got to be super careful about, as our command centers continuing through. The fusion core is already producing. We do have our starport building up as well as our Liberator. We'll push the Lings back. +2 vehicle weapons, +2 vehicle plating, all coming through. You have our fusion core coming in, our starport still coming up, and just seeing the army standing there and pushing the lurkers back with ease. That's going to be one of the difficulties for RagnaroK. If Kira is well set up defensively with this higher tech army now, it's going to be very difficult for them to break into certain positions. And that's maybe why he's going to start trending towards those Brood Lords that have a little bit more potential to break into certain positions and to actually make something happen. So I imagine we will see a pretty big kind of watch for those. And back over the other side, we do see the Spire now dropping down in the main base as well. So beginning to get the Spire started here. A few more Changelings drop down, +2 missiles. Not far from finishing. Again, the +1 flyer attack is going to be done soon too, as Lurkers burrow and our tank goes down. The Bane's just rolling into the siege tank as well. A couple of Marauders will be firing and, well, pushing straight on by. Just going to start working our way up the left, and a couple of libs coming through, the +2 vehicle plating coming up. 8 more Corruptors also on the way out for the moment. Drones just mining away on this gold mineral line. As Infestors continue up as well. 5 Infestors on the way. Spires on the way through too. Marauders wanting to try and maybe jump on top of these Lurkers. We've got Ghosts, of course, and Snipes will come in, so snipe, 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 and bye, bye, bye. A bunch of those get pushed back and killed off very swiftly already. And a couple more Thors coming out. We see the Broodlord still being brought in. A couple of Spines are being built as well. There's a lot more Ghosts still being brought up right here as we have the drones. Setting up into the center. On the far right side, we will see a hatchery here that a bit of bio can jump straight onto. Starting to jump straight onto that as Slings were kind of running up for a few moments. They get turned around pretty swiftly as well, though. Being so hot is we actually kill off some medevacs. He's making more space for better units. Basically an additional Thorso at the moment, but just sort of saying, yeah, I don't need this amount of medevacs. I don't want to have one of those scenarios where, like, it feels like I have loads of supply, but they're actually just medevacs that have nothing to heal. So just sort of taking precautions against that right from the get-go. Spine Crawler firing, and the medevac does get pushed away. Entire game obviously just slowing down at this point as we are going to snipe down this lurker. I mean, both players have a sizable bank as well. The one thing that RagnaroK is trying to do is to take one of those bases away from Kira, and you look at resources lost as a 14k difference. RagnaroK kind of wants to take that base away from Kira, because if he doesn't, Kira's in a position in this game where he really can just survive for a pretty long amount of time, right? So, and knocking that base down the right side and, you know, Kira being able to actually mine that himself would more or less give Kira the win. As long as there's not, like, one fight that Kira just doesn't get a chance to rebuild from. That said, he obviously knocks down the base of RagnaroK here, so... Oh, no, RagnaroK! No, he runs into the nuke with the Lings. Obviously, RagnaroK as well is kind of losing that base on the left, so that's one way that Kira can offset the fact that RagnaroK is trying to take one of Kira's bases away. Kira's just not going to let that base be RagnaroK, so I'm kind of fine with that as well. Difficult army to fight. The Broodlord's not easy to go pushing on into. Gotta be so careful with your Ghost. You don't want to let them get EMP'd, neural by an Infestor, and then the Infestor EMPs the Ghost with the Ghost that you neural, so gotta be careful about that. And Kira just gonna back it up. Advanced Ballistics is coming up for him, and gotta imagine in a game like this, Libs can actually be very useful, especially against the, you know, just aforementioned Infestors. Because actually, if you get some Libs on the map, then they can shoot down the Infestors during the fight, and it's very difficult to remove those Libs unless you have a good amount of Corruptors, or a few Vipers that can obviously come in, and maybe, you know, potentially get some, you know, Abducts on those Libs. But, you know, then you're forcing so many different things to happen just to stop the stop the Liberator shooting the Infestors, so it makes the, you know, engagements much more complicated from the Zerg point of view. So I love that Advanced Ballistics coming in. And there's just a little bit of creep spread here. The Lings did hold off for long enough as the Ghost will not go down. So it will stay alive. No major loss on the side of the Terran. Not that the nukes are really doing much, but again, they're causing pressure and they're making RagnaroK kind of stay on his toes and keep on paying attention. A few Hellbats just show up to nuke a few drones on the right-hand side. Wants to slow down the mining of this base. We've mentioned a couple times over the importance of just not letting the Zerg mine as freely as they want to, because you can really put yourself in a very decent position. Three all coming up. And just, you know, a couple of corruptors, I suppose, all coming in. And yeah, just a bit of bio, continue to move around. Tank bio setups up on the right. Let's see now, army coming back down the bottom from RagnaroK. Just moving around still, kind of having to stay safe, staying cautious a little bit. Extra broods coming up, couple Vipers setting up as well, and well, we do have our armies of, I will say, our armies of Kuro doing a pretty good job of kind of pushing into certain positions, and we do see a couple of lurkers already kind of getting nuked down. Our bane lanes are going to be really nuked pretty heavily, and just seeing our extra broods continuing up as well. All of our lings continuing to produce here from RagnaroK. As our bio just runs straight in, a bunch of those drones getting knocked on down. So 10 workers getting killed, and this hatcher on the right side will be denied. And again, it's really a battle over these bases, because these are the bases right now which really can provide RagnaroK with the chance to properly see a you know, a realistic way to trade out fully. I mean, you're down 20,000 resources. You need to mine these bases, otherwise you get outmined. Without those bases, you can't win this game, unless it happens in one big fight, and that's plausible. It's just so unlikely. Like, how often do you see a Zerg, especially, winning a fight at this stage of the game with these kind of armies? Super one-sided, like, really not often. Libs are going to siege up here. We talked about the importance of those and what they can provide in this fight. The Thors would love to just get forward, step in, and push those Broodlords back if at all possible, as a nuke will line up. Just going onto the front of this set of spores. Broodlings are going to drop down. That command center has to lift off, and we will keep pushing forward. Well, a group of Liberators all sieging up. A Queen will go down, and we are going to be having this army of RagnaroK pulling up the left side. Still trying to chase, getting some Broodling shots. I mean, little bits of damage being done here and there. Obviously, you're trying to contest the Terran from taking this base themselves, because you don't want that to happen. As much as you want to mine these bases yourself, you can't allow the Terran to really have these bases. Hey, some value I wanted to say, but actually the Vipers go down, and okay, we do get the Thor kill. We do kill the couple of Libs that got brought out there as well. So there was some damage dealt by RagnaroK. He's actually supply blocked. He produces 18 Overlords. Well, there's not going to be a supply block anymore, but that is a, you know, oh my god, 20 Overlords. It's 2,000 minerals. I mean, I guess you're not going to be too worried about minerals here, but it's a lot. Obviously, it just means you can carefree, kind of lose a couple of bits and pieces kind of as we go. Match still coming over on the right side, and we just see the Corruptors all producing here. 45 drones, 154 army supply currently in the game from RagnaroK. Again, game 4 of this series. Winner moves on to play Dark today. Kua needs this one to tie it up. RagnaroK needs this one to close it out. 29 minutes. About to see 30. As again, you know, we don't get the base on the left side as Kua, but he's just going to keep trying to take it again. As long as, you know, let the right side mine even just a little bit. He's going to, I think, wander just a couple of Hellbats over here. So, just little things to be annoying. And again, as long as you try to take resources away from the left. Honestly, you know, at this point, Kua, how many Orbals does he have? He has 8. even just like muling this base and like letting the mules run long distance, just so the Zerg never has access to those resources. Like anything in any way you can take away from the Zerg continues to essentially checkmate them. You can see RagnaroK is running low on A, income, you can see on the income tab top left, and B, just resources in the bank. And that means it's this sort of combination of just... it is just this combination of... essentially, as RagnaroK, you just need to go and take a big fight somehow. You need to wipe this Terran army and just go. Roll over them. Don't give them the chance to rebuild, because obviously Kira has everything set in this game to just play out if they continue to trade evenly. Kira has 7k set up. Even like rolling this army once for RagnaroK might not be enough, as we're going to apparently base trade. Kira's going to knock down the right side of the map. RagnaroK's going to start knocking down the left. I feel like this is just sort of find a gain for probably Kira, right? If I had to make any sort of guess here, I don't really see why this would be a... yeah, I don't see why this would be bad for him, honestly. Gonna knock down the hatch on the bottom side, so it's gonna nuke that nice and quickly. Oh my god, a drone! No! Was the gas worth it, bro? We knocked down this base as well. I mean, that's the newest mining base. As now RagnaroK's gonna try and move over to the left side. 9 o'clock base again. Really running out of resources. 500 minerals, 1300 gas, and Kira again, 7k. It is a ridiculous position right now between these two. Absolutely ridiculous. Thor's gonna get neuraled. Did Kira just attack his own foe? I feel like he started to control his units there, and then it just felt like he sort of just attacked them, no? That was, no, that was kind of wild. I guess, I mean... I'm not sure. Anyways, doesn't really matter. He has the money to rebuild instantly if he wants to. Oh, the nuke actually does land. The ghost does fall. The nuke does go down, just clearing up a little bit once again. And Kira just gets the right side base now. That 3 o'clock base, we talked about the 9 o'clock versus the 3 o'clock pretty much consistently. And nothing's really changing. The 9 o'clock and the 3 o'clock are both still important, and they're just trading one base to the other. I actually wonder if this one's better because it's got more, less mined on it already. I think it does. Which means that, I guess RagnaroK has mined for the most part. The left and right side. Like, Kira has not really mined off those bases at all, but if Kira just mines what's left on the right side, that's the least mined base. So then overall, I think he's still far enough ahead resources lost-wise for that to just be good enough for him. He's trying to put a command center onto the front and with that command center onto the gold base. Just try and mine out the last few resources that remain there. There's not a lot at this stage. Liberators will go down as we see our Broodlords and our Corruptors still joining up. Our couple of Spore Crawler shots off onto a lib. Command center, again, just mining a little bit, and even just not even making it a planetary, just going to orbital it right there and just say, yeah, give me even more scans, give me even more mules. Spike is going to chip their way through the Hellbats on that side and just work their way through that. We do have, again, the libs. The libs have been such a problem. Like, we've got Vipers to abduct the libs, but I feel like they create so much zoning before the Vipers can abduct, and we've never had, like, a huge amount of Vipers. It's always been, like, 2 or 3 at most. So if you're abducting all of the libs, that's pretty much all of your energy gone. And then the Vipers just don't have any, much more utility to really bring to the table if their energy's all been spent on that. So I really feel like these libs have caused quite a few complications so far as we snipe down an Overseer. Corruptors, Broods, and Infestors going to go hide in that bottom right corner. And a couple of Thors just building up from here as well. So bringing those through. A couple of Libs get abducted forward. We'll see a Fungal Growth, another abduct, and that Liberator will go down as well. Yeah, I mean, this was kind of nice, actually getting some kills here, it feels like, with these Corruptors, as this base is not going to last long at all. We're actually going to kind of fight into this. Broodlords are not being chased back as quickly as I thought they might be due to the Thors. Oh, a nice anti-armor missile. And there are a lot of Broodlings dropping into these fights, though. You kind of need a few more Hellbats here, I feel like, but And not here just yet. On the left-hand side at the same time, by the way, a couple of Hellbats do come through, and they just knock their way through a bunch of these drones. I mean, any drone you kill right now is less mine for RagnaroK. RagnaroK only has 10 workers, in fact, so... I mean, the problem is that obviously 10 workers means he just doesn't have much mining. And it's not like there's a lot to be mined anymore, but there is still half a base to be mined out. And if you don't mine out that half a base, well, you're still playing against the 5k, 7k of Cure. These fights have been decent for RagnaroK, though. A lot better than I thought they would be. I really thought that RagnaroK was going to struggle engaging into this army at all. That's really not been as much of the case as I thought it would. And he's actually done pretty decently attacking into these positions. Is going to get hit by an anti-armor missile. And a missile turret trying to fight back. Here again just has money to rebuild, so as long as he can just trade a little bit here and there each time. I mean, maybe more than a little bit, right? But he does need to be trades, as we do have the ghosts trying to do something initially. There are more ghosts in the back. The fungal growth stopped the first ones from firing. Liberator sieging up, trying to keep the infestors at bay. The fungals are decent, but the blue flame hellbats are working through those broodlings, so they are not getting a chance to do much. The Thors need to get rid of these broodlords. The broodlord count is going pretty big. Now the neural parasites come down, the liberators are gone, the ghosts aren't getting rid of them. And actually, again, a good fight from RagnaroK. The problem will be is that he doesn't have a chance to rebuild anything here while Cure can spend the rest of his resources. Can Cure get enough up to fight these 16 broodlords, though? Maybe he really can't, actually. Like, the broodlords just don't seem to be dropping off. At this point, I think Cure needs to spend all of his remaining resources almost on more Thors. Cure mining the gold base, by the way, in that top left side from the other side. That CC's been there a little while, and just trying to move and mine out whatever minerals he can. Resources, I mean, are actually suddenly an issue for Cure. RagnaroK has worked his way through this bank of Cure. Resources lost is now a 15k difference. Before we were talking about a 22k difference. And now Cure not mining the right side while RagnaroK will mine the left is actually becoming a factor that I didn't think would actually matter at all, because I didn't think there was ever going to be the fight good enough for RagnaroK to push it into this situation anyway. And just mining out this left-hand gold base as quickly as we can, even mules, because, you know, again, this is really a question of just timing. I was kind of surprised Cure didn't mule out this right side base way more than he did when he actually honed that base, honestly. Because minerals are now his limiting factor. And minerals are not something a Terran player should struggle to find when you've got mules, right? So, yeah, that's definitely been a little intriguing to say the least as well. As do you see a nuke lining up on the left-hand side? The ghost in the corner is going to be found. Here's army supply, by the way, 160 to 110. Talk about letting the man rebuild. He's adding in a few tanks that he didn't have previously, and I think just to zone the infestors during the fight. Just something else on top of those libs to keep those infestors from being able to freely neural parasite. Feels as though this one is headed the way of Cure. It might take a full 40 minutes, but I think we are going to game 5. I think. Army comes down the right side. We're going to go pushing through and liberators for days. It was scary before for Cure because, yeah, I mean, maybe if RagnaroK had enough to just keep moving forward. He obviously didn't, but I mean, his entire bank got drained, so the lead that he had was essential, apparently, for being able to set up here. RagnaroK added on 10 more drones, by the way, as he sets up to try and mine from these bases. He just loses 4 of them to the nuke, however. First time he's really lost track of a nuke in the game. Because that was... Unless he just thought the drones were going to come there after the nuke, right? Maybe he knew it was then and just assumed his drones were going to be fine, but they arrived too early. One hell of a game here on Royal Blood as, again, Liberators siege up. Tanks firing, Hatchery taking a lot of shots. This army of RagnaroK will work our way around at the bottom right corner. And we'll begin to press forward. A couple of libs will be sieging in response to this. Our Marines wanting to move through. And Parasitic Bomb will drop down. This feels like the big fight we've been somewhat waiting for. This time the Ghosts are getting some good snipes off. The Fungals are on Hellbats, which, yeah, are decent because you want to get rid of the ability to just nuke down all of these blings and broodlings, but RagnaroK taps GG. His army is just disappearing in these few moments, and that is indeed going to do it. So, we are going to a 5th and final game here between Kira and RagnaroK. We're going to go all the way, outside of all the problems that would cause. Let's talk about our series here as we have our final map, Babylon. In the bottom right, got to pull back from the 2-0. Well, he was up 2-0, and he's now lost 2 in a row. He's got to pull back from that. It's our red Zerg player, RagnaroK. Top left-hand side, the blue Terran player, 2 in a row. Can you make it 3? I did like the maps that remained for him when we got to this point. You know, Grezvan, Royal Blood, and then Babylon last to me seemed like a pretty reasonable set of maps to have to play on. So again, both times I think today in these TvZs, I haven't felt as though it's like, oh my god, you know, like I haven't felt as though we're like really being what's the word? I haven't felt as though the Terrans have been like dead at 0-2 because the maps have just been terrible and they've got to play a pretty Zergy map still. It feels like the maps have still been somewhat in their favor to come back. And so far in this series, at least, it is working out for Cure. Now getting it to this 2-2 scoreline. I mean, you go back on that last game, what went wrong for RagnaroK? Well, I mean, where do we even start, I suppose? Not to be harsh, but there was a lot that went wrong for him. You know, we're talking about a, we're talking about a game where he went mutas and they all just died. I mean, I was impressed that RagnaroK even stayed alive at one point and kind of drew it out to a later stage, and then it almost looked like he was, kind of winning again at points, and it was some wild back and forth. Very fun. These two really do give great TvZ against each other recently. Again, the amount of times that they've played and the amount of times these matches have gone long. Very entertaining. I actually think in the Korean Royale itself, these two played against each other in the group stages. And if I'm not mistaken, when that match was played, they were in the same group, right? Yeah. That was actually a pretty quick series. Like, that wasn't very long at all. But, again, when they played in the Winter Championship and a couple other times I saw them recently, they've started to crank out some longer games. So, these guys are, more recently, matching up very well with each other. Reactor building on the side of QF Factory is about to finish. Command Center about to complete as well. And Zariba just hops out from the main base and heads back into the center, so away we go. Gonna have a third hatchery dropping down the right side as well. Very standard stuff. Obviously, we kind of take a few moments to reset from that previous game. And we just see Q going 3 CCs. Still very happy to play the macro here. Not going to try and, interject too many twists and turns into this for the moment. It's just going to stay very standard there, in fact. Speed is about halfway done. We've still got a couple of Hellions coming up on the side of QS Starport, also not far from completing. A couple of Queens just going to split apart from each other. Starport will come through, ready to land down towards the factory, the barracks, and that means that you can get the Banshee on the way. So QA going for the Banshee again. We have seen RagnaroK opening Roaches, and this is a map which is a little bit shorter of a rush distance, so Roaches are 100% on the table here if RagnaroK wanted to use them. So, not too surprising to see that QS says, yeah, just going to make sure that they're not going to be allowed, really. Just not going to let them really come into play at all. Lings wrap around the right side, and they will catch both of these Hellions. Just going to catch both of those, and we try to wrap around the other side. Both those Hellions going down again. Banshee still coming up. Cloak still coming in. The extra Overlords producing from RagnaroK as well. Orbital moves up into the third location. The Lair still producing. A few extra drones are coming out. We do have a, well, Lair on the way. So Lair first from RagnaroK, making sure he has access to those overseers against these banshees. But we'll see what other tech he wants to go for. Drops the Bane nest now. A lot of the time when he's going to fire faster Lair, he has still prioritized, as we've mentioned a lot, those mutas that spire. Hellions get into the natural though, and Q is going to go a roast, and 8 drones going down. 9, 10, 11. That's a lot of drones going down. 13 workers killed. That is some serious damage. 13 dead drones, and Kua loses his Hellions to do it. But, you know, 8 Hellions, yes, that's a lot, but 13 drones is such a big hit on the Zerg economy. And the timings you can create from here as the Terran player, because you just have so much more eco, essentially, than, you know, the Zerg has from what they should have. Well, that's obviously a pretty big deal as well as... seeing our Skull Banshees continue to work down the bottom. Twins get across, just want to get in, and the couple of Banshees get turned away pretty much immediately. One upgrade, Stimpak coming through, a couple extra medevacs producing as well. The tank and the barracks all still producing here. Let's do see our Banshees coming around the back, and they're going to get 2, 3 drones shoved away by those queens, but yeah, getting in for a couple of workers nice and quickly. Doing a decent job of that, as we do have the 1-1 upgrades, the melee upgrades still coming in, the Baneling speed coming up as well. And these Lings are just going to go running at this set of rocks over on the left-hand side. Knocking down over here to see our missile turrets continuing to produce. Our units coming over toward the third base. That circling will go down. And continue with the Lings to knock their way through the rocks as well. So just continue to punch through that for the moment. Marines get across, the Overlord will get taken down already. These Marines are still pushing through. The Lings will come running back up. You see immediately just the back and forth here, right? I mean, this army of Kua wanting to get pressing in. It's one of those scenarios where, again, the Kua has a little bit of a lead. Again, those early drones going down definitely slow RagnaroK in a pretty substantial way at first. But RagnaroK should be able to hold on. He's also got plenty of bases and plenty of creep spread, so it's not easy for Kua to just go waltzing up to any specific location. Okay, you knock down the top right, but Kua's building RagnaroK's building a 5th base on the bottom side, 6 o'clock anyway, so that top right wasn't, you know, the only thing in the world or anything, you know. As the couple of medevacs continue around the south, and you just see a couple of these Lings still being popped off. Medevacs will unload in the corner. You can just see our 2-2 upgrades all on the way out for the moment. Medevacs escape away. Again, Lings, Banes continuing through. 2-2 still producing. Our Overlord Hydra speed coming up as well, so really prioritizing those. We did not go to mutas for this final game, most notably. I think it's tough to go mutas on Babylon because it is a smaller map. Counterattacks to the Terran are going to be pretty good, and just the push of the Terran is going to be pretty strong if we do put a bit too much love into producing mutas. T2 still coming in on both sides. The infestation pit is going to be finishing as our extra Zerglings all producing. Banshees is going to get active there, pushing the Lings around. And again, the few Marines going to come stepping forward to also just see a little bit more of what's going on. How are Marines trying to fight some tanks, firing up a bit of a storm. The Lings and our Banes ready to come in from the top side, and we are going to come collapsing into this army. Tanks are going to fire up whatever they can. Marines trying to evacuate, but only 2 medevacs and Marines get out. That is a little bit more deadly than I thought it was going to be. And yo, just so we have a quick moment before anything else happens, Power Puffin, thank you so much for the 4-month resub on the Prime, supporting the stream today. Much appreciated. Thank you very much. This macro game continues along, guys. I mean, we're talking about us, Ghost Academy, extra command centers. You're just, getting set for later is, he kind of loses that force. Can RagnaroK counter push? So far seems like no. Like, he's set up across the map, but he's not really moved into any particular position. He's not really committed to a move or anything like that. Medevacs load up, tanks. Sorry, Ling's just kind of chasing. No tanks here. Oh, tanks in production, though. That's what I was kind of thinking about. Because, how important are these tanks going to be as our Lings get up to the top? Banes as well, going to start going for top right side. Our Marines do lift up and get away from the medevacs. RagnaroK just moving around all over. Does he have... He doesn't have the tech that I expect him to have, though. Like, I would really love to see a couple of Vipers. I feel like that would only help you out massively. I mean, attacking in here seems honestly not great. He's going to go all from one direction. I mean, it's just a very fast way to lose 20 supply of units and to get shelled on the rest. Yeah, I just don't really understand it. And I would just, again, love to see a couple of Vipers. He's got the Hive. He's just not building any Vipers, and if you are going to try and be aggressive here, Vipers are like your absolute best friend because they provide the blinding clouds that can take some of the tanks out of the equation and maybe give you the chance to actually take a decent trade, but you're not just getting blasted by splash damage the entire way through. I mean, okay, Q might not be feeling comfortable to go moving across the map or anything, but if that's the case, that doesn't mean you have to come fight into him. I mean, don't get me wrong, RagnaroK has a lot of the bases he wants, and you might ask then what else do you do, but that's when you tech, right? This is when you're meant to add, like, the Vipers in, and he does add a couple in now. Spire comes down as well, gets some additional static defense starting to build. Ling Bane starting to press forward there just a little bit. The bio back over to the top side, and we do see our army of RagnaroK having to pull back through the center for just a few moments. What do we think we do off the Spire? I mean, there's nothing you really need, like, Corruptors for or anything right now, but you could obviously just start sending them to Greater Spire for Broodlords. The fact your opponent's so tank-heavy, maybe you just have to go to Broodlords ASAP and start making him go into other portions of the army and then looking to trade from there, add some spellcasters behind those Broods. I think I like that idea the most in terms of what else. I mean, what else could you really do at this stage? Okay, there is the Greater Spire. I think that's the best call because it gives you the best chance to kind of force your opponent into a weirder and tougher position. As it stands, you're not going to break through Cure. With Broodlords and forcing Cure to react to those Broods, or the Broods, being able to do well, very different situation for sure. +3 melee, +3 carapace coming up. The Adrenal Glands is about halfway through. The Passion Glands is also producing, so apparently all the glands, by the way. Glands on this and glands on that. Any other gland upgrades? Anyone else's glands need expanding or improving? So it's a 2-for-1 sale on glands right now. No? Nobody? Okay. Well, the first Corruptors start out, like I said, that's just a move to Broodlords. And the first Thors are on the way. Secure reading the pacing of this game well. He recognizes where this game is going. He knows what's happening. So, yeah, realizing that and moving along with it. Seeing a few of these Banes getting knocked down. The Hydra's getting chased out of here. Baneling's trying to jump on top of these Marines. Okay, obviously just trying to pull it back, but he actually does take some losses there. And a bit of micro. Loses in the top right as well, so the location's just getting wiped. Cure spending all of his money right now, not banking up a ton of money or anything, which you might expect at some stage. Spire still coming up, +1 flyer attack. The neural parasite coming through. Seeing the Liberator setting up over on the sides, and a couple of Vipers will come by as well. Just going to get him ducked off, and there is that Liberator already going down. Well, the Broodlords are going to start applying some pressure down in this bottom corner. We'll see if Kira has been able to amass enough stuff to get ready to deal with this. At the moment, I mean, he's getting a few snipes off. A few Bane's going to threaten the Ghost, and he will kill off this bottom left side base. So RagnaroK able to knock one base down at the very least here. The Ghost actually stayed forward, and looked for a moment like RagnaroK was feeling like he could take advantage of that. A few more snipers and a few more Broodlords are dropping down dead. RagnaroK still with the bank here, has his entire side of the map, and is obviously, at the moment, there's 2 bases that Kira doesn't have, and the more bases Kira doesn't have, the better this should be from RagnaroK's point of view. That's more chances for him to potentially take those bases for himself as this game progresses. But I imagine that's one of the things he might like to really do here, is we just have this push still pressing forward. I mean, if you can force Kira to pay enough attention one way, then you can obviously, or even if you just pay enough attention yourself in one direction, you can do very well against those bases, as mentioned. You know, he's going to take this bottom left one now, so he's going to start taking it in his favor. Resources lost this game too, only a 5-6k difference, nowhere near as crazy as before, but as fights continue, that should continue to grow in Kira's favor, so that's kind of why you need to take over these, you know, eventual bases of Kira from RagnaroK's point of view. Libs will be sieging up. The Infestors trying to get forward. We actually abduct these Libs in straight away, so dealing with the tech of Kira very well so far. RagnaroK engaging well, using his spellcasters properly thus far, but still a long way to go, and for the moment, we're going to back away from this nuking position. It's going to lose you a bit of the creep spread. It's one of the best things that nukes can do, right? It obviously, kill the whole army, sure, but actually being able to just knock down a bunch of creep spread like this is a huge benefit. Because by knocking down a huge amount of creep spread, it makes it so much more difficult for the Zerg to stand here and to continue fighting onto that location they were before. This isn't too pretty for Kira. He's losing a couple of units very quickly, and now we're going to start seeing a bit of a large commitment to the fight. We did drop a fungal on the Ghost. It's a massive fight for RagnaroK. He's going to do big things in this engagement, oh, no doubt. He still has Infestors ready to go. There's a few Ghosts left, but really not that many, and the Broodlords are overwhelming. There's going to be a round of reinforcements from Kira, but RagnaroK begins to break through this and is looking to eliminate all Terran hope from this top half of the bracket in the Korean Royale Season 1. We abduct... We saw Doc doing this against Kira as well, abducting the Liberator and using it against the Terran as well to zone them out. And Kira is absolutely strapped for cash. He has not got money spare. There is a missile turret killing Broodlords to the right side. He's going to get a kill. Hero missile turret. As the Liberators turn back around, they're starting to actually nuke down the Infestors. That's what the Liberators are really good at. Kira may have spent all of his money, but he does stay on even supply. However, he's losing a lot of SCVs as well, so his economy's not exactly staying in a comfortable position. You know, he can't continue to let this game go this way. He will get worn down and pushed out of it if it stays like this forever. RagnaroK has a bit of cash to spend as well. Still needs to decide what he wants to spend his money on. So far, seemingly undecided. I mean, Kira stabilizes. I mean, that's a pretty big, you know, ask. That was a pretty big request, because without stabilizing at all, he was definitely in a bit of trouble here. Stabilizing is big, and we'll see if he can do a little bit better in the next fight that occurs. Talk about resources lost again, guys. It's only a 6k difference. Usually the Terran wants it to be a lot higher than that. And the issue really is that that bottom left base of RagnaroK that is meant to be Kira's base, so Kira is not trading well enough to allow RagnaroK to mine a whole base over him. That is the overall, that is the biggest issue here. And that means that Kira is on something of a timer. Kira is the one that actually needs to sort of initiate and get his get moving. Otherwise, he's going to be in some serious trouble. Like, time is not on his side. So he needs to get rid of that base in the bottom. The problem is the further down the south he pushes, the more likely it is you might see RagnaroK pushing at the top, although it's hard to rotate those Brood Lords then. He doesn't have a lot of creep on the top either just yet. Maybe then I would have just liked to see Kira try to take that top side base already, just for the fact that Kira is quite, that RagnaroK is quite committed to the south side. I feel like that would have been kind of cool. The Brood Lords engaging, but I mean the Thor Fire is going to be pretty darn good, and Kira's army supply 148 to 107 is pretty damning as well. That's a big reason why Kira is able to do so well in these trades. He just has so much more army supply than his opponent, and like I say, that is definitely making a bit of a difference at the moment here already. A few extra brutes coming up, the Corruptor's coming around. The Varez will all get sieged. A couple of Hellbats going to go poking their way through a Spore Crawler. And a few more Broodlings going down, the rest of our bio pressing in, a couple of Changelings wandering through as well. Kind of getting caught in this as we are going to see our Brood Lords are still firing up a storm where they can. RagnaroK still has a lot of money. Utilize it as he sees best. You see that those Broods really right now want to try and get rid of a couple of those Thors. Kira is going to deny this base. Big win. I mean, like I said, that's just something that kind of had to happen, otherwise this was always going to be a problem. He did not quite land the fungal on the Ghost, and the Ghost dodged back when the next Infestor came along. Good micro, by the way. Really good micro so far. I was just going to see a couple of Thors coming through, knocking down a Spore Crawler. Corruptors still producing about halfway along. A few Infestors coming up, plus 3 missiles in production as well. And we see this army of Kira still looking to take a few steps further forward right now. The refinery is down on that bottom side, and we will see the +2 ship weapons coming in. These Spores, the Brood Lords, all still producing here as our army spreads out across the board. We've got the Corruptors going to go hunting. We abducting a Liberator or so, but the Ghost Snipes are going to be pretty darn reasonable there. So they're going to help to push this back. We drop a Mule Field down on this bottom side with these two set up against each other. A little bit of a standoff in the 6 o'clock. Neither player really able to break through for the moment, so neither able to get through. The Broodlord still setting up to potentially make a bit of a play. A couple of Spores getting hits. Now we're going to see the Broods engaging through. We're actually going to commit forward here right now as our Liberator comes in. Fungal growth is pretty darn decent. RagnaroK's supply is plummeting though. Oh my goodness, RagnaroK's supply is really plummeting. Is he going to be able to rebuild? He has the money to rebuild. Kira spends all of his gas right away. RagnaroK is going to continue pushing through, still yet to rebuild anything. He's got 70 lava. Obviously, he might just want to be taking a moment to assess what he actually needs to build when it comes to reproduction right now. Nuke flies up into the sky, just trying to push back this army of RagnaroK. Kira, like, he spent his money immediately on rebuild. Now RagnaroK starts to spend his. Kira trying to get down this bottom side. 45 to 35k resources lost. RagnaroK's now attempting to take the top side base, as a Liberator has been doing some denial up here. But this base coming online, that's one which Kira really wants to kind of have for himself at some point. I mean, he's finally gotten this base for himself, kind of. Just had to replace it right there, but we'll try and keep it in his favor. Here we go again. RagnaroK going to come fighting through immediately. As our Liberator is just trying to get some shots off. The Infestor on the ground will go down. The Overseer is just pushing through with this. The Broodlords still in the sky, just pressing forward. Kira is just not able to recover from this last couple of attacks. I mean, this was just the game setup this entire time, right? how was Kua ever really meant to be able to kind of get through this again? He kind of wasn't. Like, the Zerg got such a good position so quickly, took so much of the map. Kua didn't have his own portion of the map to really play with himself. And it really does seem as though this is just going to be too much. As RagnaroK just continues to push on through. Things is running down. Obviously, economy of Q again whammed and bammed absolutely everywhere. Broodlord's still pushing up. Just going to be seeing the orbital command taking a little bit of extra damage. The Brood's having to pull back. We have a few extra ghosts still on the way in. Infestors are still being brought up as well. But obviously, the supplies are heavily in favor of RagnaroK. He is going to come back from this, well, 2-game loss in a row to make a stand in ZVT again and see himself through to the top 6 of the tournament today. Raptors are firing, the Broodlords are firing. It's going to see all our bases going down. I mean, RagnaroK has just absolutely got this covered. And this game is going to be rounded out sooner rather than later, guys. RagnaroK with a 5-game series. And he's going to be drained going into the ZVZ, don't get me wrong. It's kind of, one of the problems of coming through from the first round of these playoffs. These days are going to be long and drawn out for you as you see the Thors trying to do what they can. You're trying to hold on with this final army. The Lings and the Banes will flood in. Fungals cover absolutely everything. And we are going to have this entire force wiped out. You're down to 50 supply. And this game really is running on fumes at this stage. GG's. And RagnaroK takes it 3-2 and moves on to the top 6 of the tournament. Alright, I will take this back for you guys and show you guys what happened if you got caught in ads. I'm super sorry. We just had 2 super long games in a row. I literally can't do really anything about it when we have 2 25+ minute games in a row with the ads. I used all of my snooze and everything to delay them as long as possible, and I just had nothing left to slow them down any further, so... was it here? Nope, this was the fight. So let me just go back. Basically, there was just one fight that basically set up the rest of the game. If the ads had stayed away for like 30 more seconds, you guys would have seen this. So basically, this fight decided the game. So I'll let this run out in real time. But TLDR, RagnaroK's about to attack in. And this is a pretty close fight that initially looks horrible for RagnaroK. He loses a lot of supply, but... it's the bank difference. It's the fact that RagnaroK has had all the bases this entire time and Kua has not. You'll see, RagnaroK's supply absolutely plummets. And Kua's rebuilding, so Kua spends all of his money pretty much straight away. But RagnaroK he's just waiting to also just see what's left over, to see what he needs to build on his rebuild. And obviously knocks down this base as well, which is one that Kua needed. Resources lost is a 10k difference, but if we had a resources mine graph, it would be heavily in favor of RagnaroK. Because again, he's had this base 4 portion. He's had these bases where Kua has not. And that was basically it, guys. I will just fast forward here to show you, but nothing else really happened at that point. It was really that fight that just put Kua in, RagnaroK rebuilds. Another fight here where we push through, and at this point, this is just Kua kind of losing out every single time, right? And RagnaroK just continues to basically push through and do very well for himself, so yeah, that's basically what happened. Sorry that guys got hit by ads at a bad time. When I said in between one of the maps I didn't need to run ads? That's why we should have just ran ads every time between games, because TvZ can go long. Okay, as you can see, this fight was just overwhelmed by RagnaroK, and then Kua spent 2 minutes dying, basically, so I will just